It's the 19th of September 2018. Melbourne is gearing up for what's being billed as the biggest final in AFL history. Richmond and Collingwood are preparing to square off in a preliminary final in front of a packed MCG. But over in Docklands, another wrinkle in what has been a separate year-long contest between the two fierce rivals is currently being played out. But this isn't just contained to these two teams. Hawthorn, who were just eliminated from the finals the previous week, have also been involved in this fight. And while this battle has taken place behind closed doors, it's been as public as any of their games on the field. This contest between three of the AFL's heavyweights has all been centred on obtaining the services of one man, Tom Lynch. But Lynch doesn't even play for any of these teams. He's still contracted to the Gold Coast Suns. But the man who started out the season as one of Gold Coast's co-captains has since been stripped of that title and is openly talking about his future away from the club. But how did we even get to this point? Let's take it back to the start of 2018. The AFL releases its list of players who will be free agents that season. That year's free agency class is arguably the most stacked since the rule's inception in 2012. But there's one name that sticks out among them all. Tom Lynch is set to become a restricted free agent at the end of the season, after 8 years with the Gold Coast Suns. And a case can be made that Lynch is the young club's greatest success story. While Gary Ablett had already made a name for himself before coming to the Suns, Lynch and Gold Coast's journey has been tied since the very start. He was taken with pick 11 in the 2010 draft, the year before the Suns had their debut season. Since then, Lynch has gone on to great heights. He's currently their co-captain, a two-time Best and Fairest winner, leading goal kick at the club for the last 4 seasons, and the only son not named Gary Ablett to have been an All-Australian. While many others have departed, Lynch has remained loyal despite numerous offers from Victorian clubs to return to his home state. But Lynch's loyalty has not been reciprocated. In his 7 years there so far, they've never played in the finals. The fact that he's been able to shine so bright is more for credit to his ability as a player, achieving in spite of playing on a bad team. But Lynch now has the option to walk to the club of his choice at the end of the year, and unlike other player trade and free agency sagas, it's pretty clear from the start who Lynch's suitors of choice are: Richmond, Collingwood and Hawthorn. Now, each of these clubs all have their individual perks and benefits. Richmond are the reigning premiers, they have a great culture, and a list that looks like it can contend for a while. And Jack Riewoldt, a champion forward of the game, would be the partner that Lynch has never had up forward. While Hawthorn weren't finalists last year, they've just come off a three-peat dynasty, and have the greatest coach of the modern era, and possibly all time. Captain Jared Ruffhead only has a couple years left, but like Riewoldt, is a former Coleman medalist and would be another excellent player for Lynch to learn off. Collingwood, like Hawthorn, didn't make the finals last year, and they're the club that it's hardest to make a case for. Their coach and a champion of the club, Nathan Buckley, was almost fired last year, and there's questions over the strength of the list. But there is enough talent there to suggest that Collingwood could be something. But one thing all these clubs share in common is that they are all big and powerful Victorian teams. They get to play home games in front of a packed MCG, in the epicentre of football in this country, while Lynch plays in a rugby-dominated state for a club that is younger than he is. All of Lynch's suitors are also associated with success. They've all at least won one premiership this decade, while Gold Coast are the only team in the AFL to have never made the finals. Gold Coast's main counter to all of this is money. They can easily offer Lynch the most, with many reporting that Lynch could receive as much as $1 million annually over 7 years if he stays. One of the reasons the Suns can afford to pay him so much is because he's one of the few stars that they have left. Lynch has watched as many of his teammates like Dion Prestia, Gary Ablett and Jago O'Meara have all left for Victorian clubs. The value of Lynch staying at the Suns isn't just reflected by how much better he makes them on the field, but how much it would mean culturally for the club. Gold Coast have been a revolving door of players being drafted and then leaving. If Lynch stays, it's a chance to stop the bleeding. Lynch's free suitors can't pay him as much on paper, but this is where the benefits of playing for a big team in a big market come in again. Now, I'm not suggesting any paper bag or Chris Judd fizzy-like deals, but it's just a reality of the situation. Big clubs have big sponsors. Players at these big clubs are also more likely to create their own sponsorship deals because they are more well known and in demand. Big clubs also attract influential supporters who can help introduce players to business and post-footy opportunities. But the Suns are looking to overcome all of this in 2018 to try and retain their co-captain. Gold Coast win their first game against North Melbourne and go on to beat Carlton the next week, with Lynch kicking a career-high 8 goals. Carlton legend Mark MacLeod even says on AFL 360 that he can't see why Lynch would want to leave if Gold Coast keep playing this way. But in keeping with an unfortunate trend that has emerged for the Suns over the last few years, where they start the season off well but then fizzle out, they only win one more game for the season and go on to finish second last on the ladder. Further compounding on this, Lynch misses 4 games due to a PCL injury, returns, but is then ruled out for the rest of the season after round 16 because he needs surgery to repair his PCL. This bit is important, we'll get back to it soon, but unfortunately it's more bad news for the Suns because all of Lynch's suitors are experiencing top 4 seasons. Richmond proved that they are not a flash in the pan and don't experience a premiership hangover like the 2016 Bulldogs. They're the best team in the league that season and have a historic undefeated streak at the MCG. The team's superstars like Alex Rance and reigning Brownlow medalist Dustin Martin continue their high standards, and Jack Riewoldt, Lynch's would-be partner up forward, wins his 3rd Coleman medal and has another All-Australian year. Despite Rance fearing that bringing in Lynch might, quote, upset the apple cart, it's later reported that Richmond's leadership group, which included Rance, had all agreed to pursue Lynch. This was reflected by each player in the group extending their contracts, which many saw as them restructuring their deals to help free up space for Lynch. Richmond are seen as the front runner, but the other 2 teams make a compelling case. Hawthorn have shot back into the finals. While this is the least talented squad that Alistair Clarkson has had in years, he's moulded them into a premiership contender. Tom Mitchell is experiencing a Brownlow medal season. Lynch's former teammate Jago O'Meara has finally gotten over his injury issues, and 2 of Lynch's potential supporting cast up forward, Jack Gunston and Luke Bruce, have All-Australian years. Collingwood is the fairy tale story that season. After their coach was almost sacked, they break their 4-year finals drought. Many players have the best season of their careers, and the highly touted midfield is living up to its high expectations. Collingwood's hybrid forward line has been rejuvenated, headlined by Jordan De Goey's emergence as a potential superstar of the game, and first-year player Jaden Stevenson has a season that would see him win the Rising Star Award that year. You know things aren't looking good for the Gold Coast when the team's coach Stuart Dew says during the season that it's, quote, not looking great for their co-captain staying there. And remember when I said Lynch missing the rest of the season would be important? This is where it comes back in. Lynch travels to Melbourne for surgery on his PCL, and while he's over there for a few weeks, reports start to emerge that he's been taking meetings with his 3 suitors. This all comes to head on an episode of Footy Classified, when Collingwood coach Nathan Buckley publicly admits that he's met with Lynch. While he said on the show that it was a while back, news comes out the next week saying the meeting was likely during Lynch's recent stopover in Melbourne. When Lynch returns to the Gold Coast, he promptly tells the club of his intention to leave for a Victorian team. The Suns act quickly by releasing the news in a statement, including the fact that Lynch has been stripped of the co-captaincy and his only involvement with the club will be with his rehab. It's reported that Lynch was met with a strong and negative reaction from his teammates when he delivered the news, though the relationship apparently recovered prior to his departure. All this noise surrounding Collingwood starts to make people wonder if they are now the front runners for Lynch. But soon the drums start beating in the Tigers' favour again. On the 20th of August, on Footy Classified, Caroline Wilson says Lynch is heading to the Tigers, saying, "As much as I could say anything definitively this year, Tom Lynch will end up at the Richmond Football Club." The proverbial death blows delivered to Collingwood and Hawthorn's chances just a couple of weeks later, when Michael Gleeson reports for The Age that Lynch's party has informed the two teams that they have missed out on Lynch's services, clearly pointing towards his imminent arrival at Punt Road. Lynch makes an appearance at the launch of NAB AFL Trade Radio, the footage which you saw at the start of this video, but denies that a decision has been made. But the link won't go away, and eventually after the season, we not only get further confirmation of the news, but a day where it will be announced at TAB's Spring Carnival launch. Gold Coast give one last kick to their former captain by officially announcing that Lynch has informed them of his intention to join the Tigers on the morning of the Spring Carnival launch, likely taking the shine off the deal Lynch probably made with the event's organisers. Now, because Lynch was a restricted free agent, Gold Coast had 3 days to decide whether they wanted to match the offer and force a trade. They certainly had the capacity to do so, as their contract offer was the largest on the table, and this topic was heatedly debated throughout the season, as some thought Gold Coast should make a stand by playing hardball with Lynch, but the general conceit was that the compensation pick Gold Coast would get by not matching the offer, which was pick 3 in that year's draft, was more valuable than any trade offer Richmond could offer them. So 3 days later, Lynch officially becomes a Tiger without a hitch, probably helped by the fact that Richmond traded 2 of their depth players to the Suns in a separate deal for virtually nothing the same day. Richmond get to show off their new recruit, while Gold Coast prepare to use the pick to begin what many see as their 3rd start in just their short history. If we fast forward a year, while everything didn't go to plan in 2019, Richmond still managed to win their 2nd premiership in 3 years, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it couldn't have been done without Lynch. When many of Richmond's stars were on the sidelines due to injuries, Lynch stood up, despite battling his own issues prior to the season because of his PCL surgery. We juxtapose this with Gold Coast, who finished last on the ladder and carry an 18-game losing streak into next season. The situation has gotten so dire that the AFL released an assistant package to help the ailing club, with measures and draft concessions similar to the ones given to them when they were first just starting up as a club. So I have to ask, I wonder who the big winner was out of all of this.